So first of all, thanks everyone for joining the webinar today. We're going to be hearing from NDDOT and the North Dakota Department of Agriculture, who will talk through some of the programs that they have for all communities across the state. So first off, we have Jamie Good with the Department of Ag, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Jamie.
Sounds good. Thank you, Emily, and certainly thank you everybody on the call, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share what the Department of Ag has going on. I know we had a new employee start. Colby's his name, and he moved from Kansas City, and he's originally from Grand Forks. And when he heard he was going to go work for the Department of Ag, he thought all we do is regulatory stuff. All we do is regulatory. Well, when he got here, he found out we do a whole lot more than just regulatory here within the Department of Ag. So he was certainly very surprised and excited about the different things that we all do around here. And that just kind of goes to show that these type of webinars are really important, and gives us a good chance to showcase those other things that we do that people might not really know that the Department of Ag does. So first off, I just wanted to mention a couple things that we have. The Department of Ag for the past 3 years, this will be our third year if you're following the screen, we developed we work with a publishing company, and we've created a North Dakota Agriculture magazine, which is a great way to showcase agriculture across the state. And I wanted to bring that to your attention because we are trying to get that publication out to communities, into maybe if your community has a gathering place, either a CVB or a local cafe where people kind of congregate, and you're interested in that publication to lay out, certainly contact us. The publication, if you're on the computer and can see it, the last publication, we've got a couple guys, it says larger than local, focusing on potato production in the state, talking about where potatoes go and things like that, not only within the state, but also within the country, and even kind of around the world. So the new publication is just coming out. We're going to have it in the rest areas here soon, once Tammy Bacchus with the Department of Commerce gets those placed in position. They'll be ready there. And like I said, if you do want some of those publications, they're a nice glossy 8.5 by 11 hardbound, well, more of a saddle stitched bound magazine. If you'd like some of those, please contact the Department of Ag. Right on our website, you can actually see get your free copy now. You can go to our website. We have a form to fill out, or just call us up. Bonnie's at the front desk. Bonnie be more than happy to take down your information to get that publication in your communities. So wanted to touch on that. But specifically myself, what I do is, like I said, my name is Jamie Good. I work more with local foods, our producers in the state that direct market, mostly through farmers markets, CSAs, maybe some direct marketing, off-farm sales, things like that. But I also help those larger producers. If there's maybe a wheat farmer who is interested in maybe direct marketing more of the wheat that he's raising, I'm certainly more than willing to help. Help them kind of navigate the ins and outs of that. So I just don't want you to think that I'm just here working with fruit and vegetable producers. Yes, that's a big chunk of the group I work with, but if you've got grains, beef, livestock, sheep, pigs, things like that. Certainly, if you want to direct market it, give me a call. I'm more than happy to assist. So with that, I did want to kind of showcase some things that we've done here to try to help those producers out. So one of the first things, if you're online and can see it right on our homepage, there's a button under local foods. So if you click on local foods, and we'll give it a second here, it'll come up. This is kind of where my space, where I work, in, we developed a local foods online map. So on the local foods page, it's right on the right-hand side. There's a link for it. For those of you that are not on there, if you just go to our home page, there's a search bar right on our home page. You can just type in local foods. It'll bring you to the local foods landing page, and you can direct it from there. So our map, we'll click on the map here so people can see it for those that are able. And what our map has on it is we've broken it down into different categories. So if you're a producer and you wholesale, maybe you're selling to a grocery store or a restaurant, or we do have some gals north of up by the Rolla area that actually sell some cabbage to Cisco. I don't know if they're still doing it, but I had heard that they were doing some cabbage sales to Cisco. So if you're doing some wholesales, we mark that on the map. Roadside stands, maybe you got a stand outside of your farm. And we also, on-farm sales, if you're a CSA, maybe you let people come out and pick produce right off of your farm. We identify that. And then we also identify like the vineyards and places where maybe you can purchase some wines to help support that industry. So how that works is we got a layers palette, layers tab you can go through and deselect certain layers. So if I wanted to, like take the wholesale layers off and I'm just looking for a CSAs, for example, I can deselect everything. And then the CSAs, you'll see they'll just show up all by themselves. You can zoom in. The map works very similar to any other online map that you might have used, whether it's a Google map or the Maps app on your phone. Also wanted to note that this map is also mobile friendly. So if you're on your smartphone, you can log onto the map and it should work really well on a mobile device. So I wanted to make you aware of that. So if you find one, let's say I'm here just north of Bismarck a little bit, there's this little star here up by Washburn. You can actually click on the star, click on that star or pin or icon, and it will fly out more detailed information about that certain producer. So right here, for example, is Dwight Duke up by Hensler. You can scroll through. We usually put an email address if you want to email him. You can we can go down. We can list products for sale on there for producers. One thing that I will say, that if you're trying to contact a producer during the summer months, like Dwight, for example, is super busy. They're super busy. That's their bread and butter time to make money. So a lot of producers try contacting them multiple times, I guess is the best thing I can say. Is some are really responsive to email and some may not be, and some are more responsive to phone than others. A lot of them do respond to texting. I know a lot of them really like texting, so that's a good way to contact them if you do want to, contact them for a specific need. So that's how the map works. If you have producers in your area that are interested in getting on the map, certainly anybody who direct markets products that they grow or raise is welcome to be on the map. They can just contact our office. There is on that web page that we had with the map, the local foods directory map, there is a link on the map to fill out a form. So if you're a farmer and rancher, you can actually fill out a form that will then get brought in. I usually check that about once a week, and any new information that I get, we'll go ahead and put that right up on the map. The nice part is with us is we have a gentleman right on our staff. His name is Jim Hansen. He does all the mapping work for us. So Jim is super responsive. If I've got somebody new, usually within that day or a couple days, he can get that information right up on the map for you. So we don't have to go, to an outside agency to do that. We can do that all in-house, which is really powerful that we have that ability and that expertise. So like I said, and now's the time too. I'm also going through and updating the map. So, for example, all the farmers markets in the state, I've been contacting them, making sure that their information is current and accurate. So as markets open up, the first farmers market will be opening up here 1st of June here in Bismarck, which I know seems like a long ways away with the snow on the ground, but it'll be here before we know it. So I want to make sure that that information is updated and accurate for, consumers that might be coming to the map looking for a place to buy products from. That's another thing that I work on pretty hard. So with that being said, if your community has a farmer's market that is not on the map, certainly contact me. I'm more than happy to get that information out there. The more information we can have out there for potential consumers, the more we can help our small businesses, our farmers and ranchers in the state. So the farmers markets are the exact same way. You click on the icon. For those of you that cannot see it, the farmers markets, I made a little blue awning tent, which is what you see a lot of times the vendors use. There again, that'll have you click on that icon, it will have the name of the farmers market, where it's located, the hours of operation, and then the market manager name. The good part with that is if you're a vendor, maybe you want to start selling at the farmers market. Now is when a lot of these farmers markets are getting organized and they're having their vendor meetings. So now it's never too early to start thinking about that. So if you know of vendors that might want to sell at a farmer's market, certainly encourage them to get in contact with that market and get on their list. A lot of them might have a small fee that they might have to pay and paperwork to fill out, all that stuff. So certainly a valuable tool. Like I said, if there's information on the map that needs updated, also contact myself. I will get that to Jim and we will get that information updated or added. So wanted to bring that to your attention. Also wanted to show on the map, for those that can see it, you'll see there are these orange pins on the map. And these orange pins are actually produce donation sites, a program that we administer with the department, and we're entering our 10th year is our hunger-free North Dakota Garden Project. And what that is we encourage farmers and gardeners of all sizes to either plant a little extra, to consider donating to a charitable feeding organization in your community, or if you have extra, everybody, maybe it's getting to be the end of the season and I've pickled my last cucumber and they're still growing. Instead of pulling out those cucumbers, if they're still producing well, maybe consider picking all that produce and donating it to a local food pantry in your area. With that also, if you have a local food pantry in your community that is not on our map, that does collect fresh produce, contact with me and we're more than happy to get them on the map. Right now we have roughly 75 produce donation sites listed on the map, but certainly we can use more. So if you're in a community and you know of a place, maybe it's a church, maybe the church has a food pantry, or a local school that takes fresh produce during, maybe they have summer school classes or things like that, or the local college, if you have a community college, or even like a senior center. A lot of times maybe a senior center might collect fresh produce. Consider contacting me and let's get everybody on the map. I'd really like to, my goal would be to get at least a pin it'd be great to have a pin every 30 miles for people to donate produce to, because if we can get it in the hands of people that need it, it's a lot better than either going in the garbage, or, you can compost it and that's good as well too, but certainly helping your neighbor in need is a good thing. So wanted to bring that to your attention. We used to have just a list, and the list was great, but we've certainly had a lot of really good responses to the map. People can go on the map, find out where those sites are at, and drive right to them. So just wanted to bring that up. The commissioner this year at our local foods conference in February, he has set a goal for 500,000 pounds of produce to get donated this next growing season. You might think that's a big number, and it is a big number, but last year we actually donated over 5,000 pounds of produce. The Department of Ag, we work with the Great Plains Food Bank and help record those produce donations. So we are actually, for the 9 years the program has been going, we are at over 2.8 million pounds of produce that we've recorded, which is tremendous. As tremendous as that number is, we also know there's probably another 2.8 million pounds of produce out there that hasn't been recorded, and that's awesome too. So, we want to make people aware of that is an option. It's 10 years ago, people weren't thinking about donating produce to food pantries, and now it is certainly, to help that well-rounded diet for individuals. And we want to make sure that everybody has access to, fresh fruits and vegetables, in the state. And that's one way that we can do that. And a lot of food pantries are putting in coolers, making sure they have the type of storage that they need to accept those produce donations. But certainly with that, if you're donating produce, certainly call ahead, because certainly not everybody is equipped to handle fresh produce, but most of them will, like a zucchini or even like a cucumber. You think cucumbers need to be in the refrigerator, but a lot of times a cucumber doesn't have to. I know they can sit on the counter and last pretty decent if they're just kind of in a cooler place. So that's the other piece of this, is if there's a place not on the map, certainly call them and say, hey, would you accept this? That might be a really good kind of foot in the door to see if they have a need and a want. So that's that program. Another program that I work with that we're kind of right in the middle of right now is our Community Orchard Grant project. What that program is it's funded through the USDA Specialty Crop Block Grant. I apply for those funds every year. The Department of Ag applies for those funds. And this past year we got awarded $52,000 to put orchards in communities again across the state. We've been doing that program now for, I think this is our 5th season doing community orchards across the state. And like I said, we're right in process of actually awarding applications right now. I actually have to meet with the commissioner. We had a committee that made their selections and present that to the commissioner, and the commissioner will make his final selections based on the committee's recommendations. So if there is a community on the call that has applied for that, I'm hoping to get with him here. I'd like to this week to get those awarded. Certainly, it's funny. I don't hear anything from applicants until the temperature gets about 40 degrees. And the temperature got to 40 degrees this week, and I'm starting to get emails asking if we have made any decisions yet. So with session going on right now, things are quite busy in the department. But the commissioner, this is a project that he really supports. He really values us providing those funds to communities. So I just need to find some time to get with him, and it's always really interesting. He always wants to know, well, how many trees are they planting? What are they planting? What are they going to do with it? So it's not just a rubber stamp. He just isn't rubber stamping what the community says. He really takes stock in what's going on, and maybe they should do this. Could you ask them to do this? Or like last year, do we have more money? I'd like to give out more money. Well, sorry, we don't have more money, but maybe we could work with a few more communities if they don't need all that money, to try to spread that out as much as possible. So like I said, it's another really great program. With that being grant funded, I will it's not a guarantee. Every year is not a guarantee that we will have those dollars. So if your community has gotten a grant in the past and it's benefited your community, certainly drop a note to the commissioner about that. Send him a little email. Let him know that it is important, because this past season, actually, we actually had to extend the deadline. We didn't have enough applicants for the money we had, so we extended the deadline to try to get more applicants in. And if we don't get enough applicants to use the dollars, which sounds kind of silly, I understand that, but we may look at using those dollars, applying for those dollars to do other projects with. So my takeaway there is if you see value in this program, to let us know that, because the commissioner, again, is very responsive to communities' needs, the people's needs, and the only measure we have to measure it is the applications we get in. So as we see applications dwindle, well, maybe this program has kind of ran its course, and communities and maybe they have other funds to do projects, or like I said, there's just not that interest anymore. That's kind of what we use as a benchmark. So like I said, if it's valuable, let us know that it's valuable to you, and we'll certainly do what we can here to try to continue that program. So I wanted to let everybody be aware of that. If the applications, if we do open up applications, those will usually become available around November time, usually November, December, into middle January is when we close applications, do the review process, and try to get those awarded by middle April, so communities can start working on their projects. So that's been a really great program. People have really liked it. Like I said, unfortunately, we've just seen kind of applications dwindling the past couple years. So that's that program.
Hey, Jamie, quick question.
Yes.
This is Emily.
Yes.
Do you know off the top of your head, can you think of a community that recently has used this project, this grant? And would you mind kind of explaining what they did with their project?
Yeah, I can certainly do that. So I will use one older project because it's really great to go see it. If you're in Cheyenne, the city of Cheyenne, north of Carrington a little ways, they were one of our first recipients of a grant, and they put in, oh gosh, I'm trying to think. I've seen it a couple times. It's just a beautiful orchard. They put up a nice fence around it to keep the deer out. They've got apple trees, pear trees, cherry trees, lots of different fruiting trees and shrubs. They put in some raspberry bushes. I think they've got a total of probably 30 different varieties of fruit-bearing trees. Like I said, that we helped them. The grant paid for not only the trees, paid for the fence, helped pay for. They ran some temporary irrigation lines through there. We could help pay for that as well. And they've done a really nice job with it. The community comes together every fall. They do kind of a nice big picking event, and we make some pies, have a nice a fall festival type of event around the orchard picking. We have another local community organization that'll bakes with it. We have a little bake off, different things like that, and it's just a really nice orchard, and they've done a really nice job of keeping it up and just showcasing it. So I really, kind of, when people ask about a good orchard to go look at, I send them that direction. Another orchard project is right here in Bismarck. The Go Bismarck Mandan community group, they applied for a grant, and there's actually 3 different smaller orchards around the city. There's one at Ruth Myers, at the Hospitality House in Ruth Myers. They put another smaller one by Kem Kelly Parks. If you're familiar with Bismarck, there's the big baseball diamond complex, not by Shiloh on the interstate, more down off of Main Street, or down off the expressway, down by the zoo. Put an orchard down there. And then the third location they used was out by the extension office. They planted some trees out there. And what they've done, they've created a Facebook page. So a lot of times when like the strawberries are ready, they'll send out a little note on the Facebook page, hey, the strawberries are ready. If people want to go out and pick them, help yourself. Or the apples are ready, or the raspberries are doing good. But the other thing that they do with that Facebook page is they have spring cleanups out at the orchard. So they'll post an event on that page and say, hey, we're going to all get together and go out and pull weeds, maybe reprop trees up after the winter, lay some new mulch down, and really help as a good avenue to bring people together to work on a project. And that's the other thing with these community orchard grants, is they are community focused. They are not for a local farmer who wants to plant apple trees to sell those apples to like a cider house, for example. So they need to be community focused. They need to have access for the community members to get to. So you just can't, put it on well, you can put it on private land, but we need to look at that arrangement and make sure that that is indeed okay. And size of the town doesn't matter. Certainly we've got, like I said, I mentioned Bismarck, I mentioned Cheyenne. We funded an orchard project in the small town of Milo. The town of Milo is up by Rolla area, population of 30. In fact, that orchard is actually sitting on somebody's private property. And what he had is, as you come into the small town, he owned this little triangular chunk of land that he wasn't going to use for nothing, and had a confluence of drainage ditches coming into it. And I went up, visited with him. He's a very community-minded individual. He's on the fire department and the volunteer fire department and the town board and all this stuff. And it's there. It's on his property, but the community has access to it. They made a nice sign. They hung a sign out that says Milo Community Orchard. So certainly, it doesn't matter how big or small your community is. You can, we want to get orchards all around the state, and that's kind of, our goal is to, certainly we do have a very big concentration of orchards. I would say Bismarck East, but certainly we're always looking for those communities that are in those, outlying areas that could benefit from these funds. So. Like I said, we got a good slate now. I can't really say too much because I need to wait to get the commissioner's blessing on it. But if you did apply, I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks to be able to contact you and make everybody aware of that. So I think I'm getting long-winded, so I'm going to stop here and take any other questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Jamie. All right. And as you can see, his contact information is right on the screen there. So I'm sure that he would love it if you followed up with him afterward if you do have any questions. So now I'm going to switch gears here and hand it over to our team from the Department of Transportation. And we have Brian and Stacy. And my apologies, Brian. I think I called you Byron earlier. I saw the Y in your name. So I'm going to share my screen and pull up the website for NDDOT. And then at that point, I'm going to just hand it on over to Brian and Stacy.
Alrighty, thank you. My name is Brian Fuchs, and with me is Stacy Hansen. We work in the local government division for North Dakota Department of Transportation. We primarily work with the 12 urban cities, 12 largest cities, and then the 53 counties. And we also work with transit providers across the states. And as we go through here, each one of us oversees a few of the different programs here. We'll just briefly touch on each one of these and what they're for. So occasionally you'll hear me talk, and then otherwise it'll be Stacy that'll be visiting. So this first one is called our ND Street program. What this does is it helps communities that are less than 5,000 in population that have a state highway that run through them. We do an annual solicitation on this program. There's $3 million available in federal funds annually available to them. And what it does is it helps them improve the state highway that runs through their community. So say somebody is replacing water lines and sewer lines, things like that, and they say, oh, we want to upgrade the street there too. That's something that we can look at doing. Or maybe they want to improve pedestrian facilities around in their area as well on that state highway system. That is something that we will participate in. And again, it's a solicitation, annual solicitation. It goes in front of a committee. We just recently were setting up meetings to select projects for 2022. So these projects are usually 3 to 4 years out. So it's federally funded, so all this stuff has to be authorized ahead of time. It's not nothing that you can come back and ask us money for after projects are done or anything like that. So that's our ND Street program. If you want to scroll down a little bit to the Transportation Alternatives program, that one there is an annual solicitation as well. We're a couple years out with that, and we're going to be meeting here to select projects for this one as well. But this program here provides funding for the 12 urban cities, as well as counties and smaller cities, tribal organizations, things like that, to improve sidewalks within their community, maybe add a shared youth path in their community. The money available is not that great. As you can see, it's only 1.6 million of it is available. About 900 to urban areas, about 700,000 to rural areas. This is a solicitation. Projects are selected by a committee based on those applications that are submitted for that. But it does help improve those pedestrian facilities within the community. We've done sidewalks around schools, the shared youth paths, things like that. So very good program, very, very sought after program, even though there's limited funds for that program. The next one is...
Oh, hey, Brian, before we switch to the next one, would you mind giving an example of something that this funding source was used for?
Yeah, can you click on these tabs here? Some of them have links to them. If you want to click on that one, yeah, you can see over on the right-hand side. There's some pictures there. There's the Sunset Trail in Mandan, shared youth path there. And then there's an overlook at the Pembina Gorge that was used. That was under our previous program, Transportation Enhancement Program. And then if you scroll down a little bit, that's part of another project, historic bridge program, but that's part of a pedestrian facility as well. If anybody's familiar with some of the paths around Bismarck, the walking paths around Bismarck on Washington Street, we've done that as well. This uses this for. And here lists all the eligible activities for it as well.
That looks like a really useful program for Main Street communities.
It is. The next one is Small Rural Economic Development Program. This is a program that isn't used very often, and we take, it's just whenever people want to apply for the program. There's $640,000 available each year. And this program is eligible to the counties to upgrade a federal aid roadway that leads to, say, a new business is coming into town and they need to upgrade that federal aid road to help with traffic, or maybe there's a turn lane that needs to get installed, things like that, or maybe some other traffic control item. This money is available to the counties on a federal aid route. But if there's a smaller community that has the county federal aid route that goes through their community and it's going to access a business, it's not existing businesses, but like new businesses, they can apply for this funding to help with those improvements. We don't annually solicit for it, so it's as things come into the community, they can contact us and we can get them the forms they need to apply for the grants, and then the department will look at it and let them know if we're going to fund the project or not, help them with the funding. So.
Hey, Brian, would you mind explaining what a federal aid route is?
Yes, a federal aid route is eligible to spend the federal money on. Sometimes out in the county, it might be considered a farm-to-market road. Like a state highway is a federal aid route. The interstate's a federal aid route. There's some, the towns the state highways that run through smaller communities, those are federal aid routes. They're listed as major collectors and above. We do have on our website, we do have maps at the county level, as well as the 12 largest cities that identify which routes those are.
Excellent, thank you.
Brian, this is Buster over in Hazen. Got a question for you now. Would there be dollars available to look at doing an underpass under Highway 200? We already have one on the west side of town, but we'd like one a little further east. And because we have a lot of student traffic and pedestrian traffic north of the highway, and they have to cross the highway in that area of town, kind of to the east. So any possibility that dollars could be used for an underpass on a major highway?
Yeah.
And I'm talking pedestrian.
Yeah, just for pedestrians, well, you kind of have two options there. One option would be the Transportation Alternatives Program. The downside to that program is we do limit the federal aid, so in that area it'd be limited to $200,000 in federal aid, and putting a pedestrian underpass under 200 would be pretty substantial chunk of change, so there'd be a lot of local costs involved there. Your other option would be to try and work with the district engineer to get a project planned and put it on the priority list, and then the cost share would be minimal then.
Okay.
And we can, if you want to get a hold of us after this call, we can discuss that more.
Sure. Okay.
All right. Okay, then the next program is Urban Grant Program, and that's one of Stacy's programs.
Okay, this program is one of our newer federal aid programs, and with this program we have $4.6 million available each year for cities with a population 5,000 or greater, and this program is to make improvements such as pedestrian, bicycle, and multimodal type improvements in the downtown areas of communities. This is a newer program, and we are just currently working on awarding our third year of funding. Our committee has met, and we are working to get those new awards out. We do have some projects that started construction last summer, and our second round of projects will start construction this summer. So hopefully in the near future we'll have some good examples of what this program has put out there, I guess, as far as improvements in these downtown areas. The next program is our transit grants. This is also, it's both a federal and state program. The federal funds come from the Federal Transit Administration, and we have several transit providers in the state, and they can apply for federal funding for operating and capital improvements such as the transit buses, to provide public transportation in their community and throughout the state. We also do receive some state aid for public transit. This does come through the legislature, and it is distributed via a formula that's set in the Century Code. So that is a program that is also available. And again, we do have transit services statewide. So there's information on our website that does list all of the transit providers in the state, and links to their contact information should you be looking for ride services anywhere in the state. If you scroll down to the next program, that's the Federal Lands Access Program, and I'll turn that one over to Brian.
The Federal Lands Access Program is a program that came out under MAP 21, and what that does is it provides about $900,000 annually to North Dakota to improve roadways or facilities leading up to federal lands. So if there's a wildlife management area, a refuge, Bureau of Rec land, core land, like around lakes, things like that, this program provides funding to improve those routes to access those lands. The Central Federal Lands out of Colorado, they run the program. The North Dakota DOT and the local Federal Highway Office, and then the North Dakota Association of County Officials sits on the committee that selects those projects. What they try to do is they'll solicit for projects, and they want to select projects, for a number of years, like 4 to 5 years worth of projects, and then work on those. So any agency, like whether it's a township or a city or a tribal or state government or county, could apply for these programs when it comes out. It's an 80-20 split, so there's a 20% local match, so whoever the agency is that puts in those applications would be required to supply that match money for that program. So that is a program that you don't see that often, but the solicitations would come out from Central Federal Lands, and then we send that out to all the local agencies and entities that would be applicable for those funds. Special Road Fund, that was established by legislators quite a few years ago. And what that does is it takes the money that the DOT gets and puts in a bank account, it takes the interest off those funds, and it goes into the Special Road Fund for projects that are with recreational, tourist, or historic areas. So occasionally you'll see a solicitation that comes out from the DOT accepting applications for this, and it's all based on the interest. So sometimes we only have enough money to award maybe 3 or 4 projects. It's not a large program, but it is state funds, and then what it does is it allows those agencies to complete the work themselves or hire somebody and get reimbursed after the work is done. You know, some typical projects that are, you know, they might be overlays to boat ramps or overlays to other recreational areas. Sometimes it's, you know, grading, graveling projects, things like that. So a lot of times it's just the road work that they want help with the different areas.
The next program is our local transportation planning program. That is a portion of our state planning and research program, and it is a federal aid program. We receive about $450,000 each year in federal funds for local transportation planning, and we use the funds to assist cities and counties in completing studies like long-range transportation plans and corridor studies on federal aid routes. And those studies, we accept requests each year to get put into the program for these funds. The next program is the Highway Safety Improvement Program. This is also an annual solicitation. There's money available each year for cities and counties to address highway safety issues. Applications are submitted, cities, counties, tribal governments, and if your safety project is eligible, then a safety program is developed and a project would move forward through the DOT.
This would be another program that would, if you're looking at pedestrian movements across 200 in Hazen, this is another program after thought about it a bit, that this would be another program that you could apply to make improvements on 200. You know, it could be something on top of the surface for crossing, or maybe the best avenue is an underpass, but this is one option that Hazen could apply for. This next one, it just says regular highway program, and what that is, that's just the money that the DOT gets, because the money the DOT gets is grant money, so this is part of our regular program. It's put on here just to identify that, you know, some projects, on the projects that we do and everything. So some of those projects, like if these local agencies, if they have a state highway and they work with our districts to get a priority project put on the system, like if they want some improvements made and the district agrees with it, it would go through this program. So again, if you don't see any funding options that you think are applicable, you have a state highway that runs through your community, you want to look at improvements, whether it's turn lanes or some other improvements on that system, just visit with your district engineer, and then it would be, if they prioritize it, it'd go under this program.
The Urban Roads Program is a program that we have for cities with a population 5,000 and greater, and this program is federal funds, and it is for federal aid streets within cities, and we do have maps on our website that show what streets are on each of the 12 largest cities' federal aid system. And then with this program, those cities receive an allocation each year, and they would decide how they would want to program those funds, what types of projects they would want to do, whether they need a reconstruction project or a mill and overlay or turn lanes or traffic signals, things of that nature. And then if you scroll down to the next program, that's the Urban Regional Program. That program is for state highways through cities with a population over 5,000. And in this program, this is where we do improvements to the state highways that run through those communities. And again, we can do anything from bridge work to reconstruction, preventative maintenance type work like chip seals, microsurfacings, all sorts of things. These projects are scoped, and the needs are developed by the city in conjunction with the district engineer, and then the program is developed each year and goes into our STIP. The next program is our Metropolitan Planning Organization program, and currently in the state we have 3 MPOs. Federal requirements designate an MPO if your community is 50,000 population or greater. So we do have 3 areas that meet that requirement, and so they do have a Metropolitan Planning Organization that essentially does regional transportation planning for that metro area, and we provide federal aid to accomplish some of the required planning needs in those larger cities. And then if you scroll down, the next program is our County Roads Program.
Yeah, the County Roads Program, annually the counties get about $14 million in federal funds to share between all 53 counties. The money is divided out by formula based on the federal aid routes within their county, population, land area, and then tax dollars collected. So that is shared. It is allocated already to the counties. The counties decide within the county on where they want to spend those federal aid dollars that they receive on those federal aid routes. Now, some of those routes, federal aid routes that are on the county system, do go through smaller communities, less than 5,000. So if you're one of those communities and you want to upgrade that roadway and you want to access those funds, you'll need to work with your applicable county to have them allocate those dollars for those road improvements within your community. The bridges, we get $6 million to assist the counties with replacement of bridges that they own or to rehab those bridges. Bridges are considered anything 20 feet or greater in length, or I should say the span between abutments. That is based on like a county, if they want to replace a bridge or do anything on a bridge that they have, they would send that bridge into us. We look at it, see if it's something we'd fund, because there are bridges out there that don't serve enough people, don't have enough population, or maybe there's other bridges in the surrounding area that could be utilized to get around because we have limited funding. So some of the smaller communities, if they're less than 5,000, if you got a bridge located within your community, chances are the county is responsible for that according to Century Code. So if you're looking at wanting to do a bridge that's in one of those communities and it's on the system, it's something that the DOT actually inspects, you'll need to visit with your county to try and get them to prioritize that bridge and submit it into us for funding for replacement or rehab of some sort. The next program is Historic Bridges. That program, it's kind of I'm going to say kind of a funny program, but it's a program that what we do is there's a lot of through trusses, pony trusses bridges out there that are old, not in very good shape, And what we do is we'll take those bridges and we'll repair them to some extent, as long as they still meet the historic designation. Might replace abutments on them so they keep withstanding, repaint them, things like that, to save some of those from history. And the intent is not to upgrade them so they're usable by the newer equipment that's heavier, things like that, but it's just to restore it to its existing capacity. So maybe it's only foot traffic that is allowed back on it. Maybe there's only cars or passenger trucks type vehicles that use those facilities. It's a program that we're currently doing one in Velva. We did one up in Cavalier County, the Brick Mine Bridge, in the Pembina Gorge. They usually turn out very well. So that is a program that we will start soliciting at some point here for additional bridges to do. So if you have one within your community or in the county, that is something that if you want to restore a historic bridge, that is a program that would be applicable to you. Next program is the rail crossing program. That is a program that is administered by our planning and asset management folks. What that is they get, I don't remember the dollar value, but they do get several $1 million a year to upgrade railroad crossings, whether it's at a township level, county level, or in the cities. If it's in a city that's less than 5,000, our agreement would be with the county. Same thing if it's on a township roadway, and that's a 90-10 split. So if you need to upgrade the crossing or signals at a crossing, that's a program that you could call in here and visit with our railroad folks and try and get a project to improve that crossing. Rail loan program, that's a program that is primarily for the railroad, so it's not really for the communities, but if you have a rail line that you want to see improved in your community, work with your local railroad agency, and this might be an option for them. It's not a grant, it's a loan. That's why it was put down as a loan. So the Rec Trails program. The Rec Trails program is similar to the Transportation Alternatives program, except the North Dakota Parks and Rec Department runs that, and they do an annual solicitation as well for that. Again, it's shared use paths, things like that they look at funding for that. That is an active link that I believe takes you to the Parks and Rec Department. But I know we're running short on time, so that is another option if you got a shared use path that you'd like to do, and they got other programs. So the next program is we have a list of special federal grants. With the highway bills that come out, there's usually special funding opportunities that come out for special projects, large projects that we apply for grants. So these are additional funds that the department will apply for. Some of the last ones that we put in for was to replace multiple county bridges throughout the state. We weren't successful in any of those grant opportunities, but there's 55th Avenue Bridge up in Minot was one of those projects that received a grant many years ago. So there are special grant opportunities out there that, and certain local agencies can apply for those grants directly depending on the criteria for those grants. So that is something that local agencies should keep an eye out for. And then the last one is our Safety Division grants. That is, they provide NHTSA funding to administer different items through law enforcement. So sometimes those grants are used to pay for extra law enforcement hours, overtime hours for like DUI checkpoints, seatbelt activity enforcement, things like that. So if you have anything within your agencies for law enforcement that you'd like to see them do additional work or anything, this is something that they could apply for those grants here. Visit with our Safety Division folks on those. And we're sorry for the quick run through on these programs, but if any of you have any questions on any of them, please get a hold of Stacy or myself. And if we can't answer it, we'll send it to the correct division to get those answered and everything. So with that, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian and Stacy. I have one question that was sent in by email. So is the Transportation Enhancement Program not still available?
That is correct. It changed to the Transportation Alternatives Program. The main change was that the Transportation Enhancement Program used to allow funding for anything that was deemed transportation related. You know, so there were some projects that if anything that had to do with transportation at one point they could get funding for. It kind of did away with that. They wanted to make it more of an alternative, so more of the bike and ped thing instead of just a lot of the historic stuff. Some of our past projects included, you know, restoring like a old train depot that wasn't a train depot anymore, but because it had a transportation-related history. So it got rid of some things like that I think they felt they wanted to put more for the actual, you know, encourage people to walk and bike and stuff like that.
Excellent. That makes sense. And I have one question. So a lot of communities in North Dakota have the road that runs through their downtown or their business district might be a main road, maybe even a state highway, and it gets a lot of traffic. Maybe could you talk about some things that you have seen communities do to successfully make those areas more walkable or more pedestrian friendly?
Yeah, some of those Main Street things like that, and if it's in an older community, you generally see a lot of times it's a very wide Main Street. So sometimes what they've done is done bulb outs at intersections where it kind of narrows it up. So then it slows traffic down and allows that pedestrian to come out, and they don't have to walk across the street so far. So there's been some things that have been done like that. They've put in some other traffic signals like a hawk or a flashing beacon, you know, so they can push the button and then it stops traffic for pedestrians to walk across the street. There's been some things like that, but, you know, depending on the scenario, you know, there's usually some traffic operational stuff that's done and studies done to look and try and figure out what the best method is to accommodate that solution there.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, thanks everyone for joining today. And special thanks to Jamie from the Department of Ag and Brian and Stacy from the Department of Transportation for sharing the information today.